everyone, welcome back to another episode of Subconscious Medicine. How's everyone's week? It is Wednesday when I'm filming this. I'm not really sure when it's gonna be out. Also ignore the broken nail. I'm well aware. But it's Wednesday when I'm filming this, and I have Wednesdays off from work, so kind of my chill day. Although usually I'm not really chilling. I'm like find something to occupy my time, but yeah, it's my day off, so it's really exciting. So I thought I'd sit down and take some time to record a little episode for you guys. But let's catch up. So this past weekend, I went to Rhode Island to surprise my grandmother for her birthday. So it was so much fun. My grandma lives in Connecticut, but in the same town that like my parents live and stuff. But she owns a beach house in Charlestown, Rhode Island, if you guys are familiar. So she spends a lot of time in the summers, especially up there. And she wanted to spend her birthday there. So I've been planning for like the last month, 2 months maybe, to surprise her. So that finally came, and that was so exciting. We had a great weekend, really chill, relaxing. I was only there for like literally 50 hours, 48 hours. And yeah, so we didn't really do very much. Went to the beach Saturday and Sunday, so that was great. We went out to a nice birthday dinner at one of her favorite spots. So yeah, really relaxing, but it was super fun. So happy I got to see her. I got to see my parents too, so that was really exciting. I don't get to see them a ton anymore, although my mom is visiting. To have a little girls' weekend. So she's coming in August, right before school starts. That's really exciting. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. And then I came back Monday. Supposed to be earlier in the day. Didn't get home till nighttime because my flight was delayed a bunch. And then Tuesday, or yesterday rather, I had work. Went grocery shopping, trying to get back on like into a routine and onto my normal schedule. I've been away the last like 4 weekends in a row, I think. So I'm excited to have a chill weekend this weekend, although I have like no plans, so it's stressing me out a little bit. But probably just gonna go to the beach, do a little reset, clean around my apartment, typical like Sunday reset type activities. But it's been a crazy last month or so, but getting back into the swing of things, especially the month before school. I really want to get back into my routine so that I start the year off right and things. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Today's episode is kind of like different from the other ones. The topic is something that I think about a lot. It's a big part of my life. Obviously, you'll see. But as I've mentioned before, it's not something I talk about a lot for a lot of different reasons. But um, yeah, it's like kind of personal. But I think that it can be really helpful to other people who are in the same position, and also people who are not in the same position, people who are sort of outsiders, so that they can just be more aware of their actions and things like that. So, if you didn't know, I've been in a relationship for about 4.5 years now. Um, and I'm a very private person, I feel like, in a lot of respects, but especially when it comes to my romantic relationship. I sort of see it as like something that's mine and other people don't really need to be a part of. And I feel like people have mixed opinions about that. I'm pretty strong willed in my perspective on this, but I just I I feel like it's mine to have, and I don't really feel the need to let other people into it. Obviously, I share certain aspects of my relationship with other people, but in general, I feel like I'm pretty reserved in that respect. And things that tend to bother, like my friends or whatever, just don't really cross my mind. And in large part, I think that does have something to do with the length of time that we've been together. Just sort of get used to letting things go or not letting certain things bother you. But I kind of feel like I've had a unique perspective on this from the beginning. Um, Things like posting each other on social media or commenting on each other's posts, not something that we do. It's not important to me. I don't care. Doesn't bother me at all. Also, a key component to this that I guess I kind of skipped over is we're long distance. And we pretty much have been long distance almost the entire time. So that too obviously plays a huge role in how we navigate our relationship. Um, but besides from that, posting each other on social medias is not something that we do at all, really. The point being that I feel like we have done a really good job at maturing in our relationship, and I can say that we are closer now than we ever have been before. We're still long distance. We will be long distance for the foreseeable future. And not that I'm glamorizing long distance or I'm saying that it's like better in any way. I definitely don't feel that way. Would, wish we could not be long distance and live together or like live in the same city. That would be amazing, but that's not our reality. And we're both pursuing our respective careers and achieving our goals. And we need to do that apart. Sorry, we need to do that away from each other right now. So that's okay. And that's this phase of life. And there will be an end to it, I'm sure. But for now, this is what works best for us and what allows us to pursue our own goals. And so, yeah, the most we can do is just support each other in those respective goals, and be there for each other, and then appreciate the times that we do have together. Um, so, yeah. Anyways, again, as I was saying, I I see our privacy in our relationship as a way to protect ourselves in our relationship. And yeah, as I mentioned, I don't care to share details with other people. I don't really feel like it's their business. Um, and again, I feel like this is something, a lot about who we are as people, but we tend to just be more private people, so we kind of keep it to ourselves. But all this to say, um, there's another large characteristic of our relationship that drives a lot of our decisions, and that is that we are an interracial couple. So I am white, clearly, and my boyfriend is black, and especially living in the Northeast, where we're both from, we're not from the same town, but the demographic of both of our towns is quite similar. In large part white, like most northeastern states tend to be, or cities tend to be. And so being in an interracial couple is definitely unique. I don't think I know, I know a handful of interracial couples. Um, Not to say that they're the same race as my boyfriend and I, but just interracial in general. And I think it's often overlooked, some of the challenges, or not even challenges, I guess that's not the right word, but some of the unique circumstances that come with being in an interracial couple. Um, and those aren't really something you can prepare for. And this is, again, a topic that I feel like people just don't think about, they don't care about, they don't even like acknowledge most of the time, but it's something that we definitely have experienced consequences of. Things that I never really thought I would have to think about that I find really fascinating. I think other people might enjoy hearing. And then also, if you're not in an interracial couple or an interracial relationship, rather, these are things that maybe you could think about yourself and start to be more aware of when you are interacting with people who are in this situation and how you can be more supportive. But yeah, so I guess the first sort of like time that I noticed that other people noticed that we were in an interracial relationship, which is okay, so this is interesting in and of itself, is that I feel like other people noticed I was in an interracial relationship before I did. I never really paid much attention to it, but it was when other people started noticing, making comments, staring particularly long, whatever the case may be, asking questions. That was when I picked up on, this wasn't the norm. Obviously, I knew, but I didn't really, again, pay much mind to it because I didn't think it mattered, but apparently it matters a lot more to other people. Um, so, I can think of a few instances in our early relationship where it definitely was made apparent to me. Um, and it's unfortunate. And I want to preface this by saying that in no way am I saying that because I'm dating a black man, I understand the black experience or I'm part of it. Absolutely not. And I don't mean to speak on like the black male perspective. I'm not speaking for them in this instance. I'm just trying to share my own experiences as someone who is often seen in society with a black person, and how my experiences have taught me about what society thinks about interracial couples. But moving on from that, so the first time I feel like it was really made apparent, I was at we were shopping at like an outlet mall in by our home, and there were like these women in like employees at the store that we were at. And I'm not gonna like say the name of the store, it's not important, but there were multiple employees at the store. All of them were female, all of them were white. And we walked into the store. We were just walking around. We didn't purchase anything, I don't believe. But the employees that were not at the cashier register, they were just browsing around, putting things away, whatever. They started following us, and they would like look my partner up and down, and just like make some rude and disrespectful, not comments. They weren't even talking to us, they were just looking at us. And you know they were insinuating that we were suspicious or whatever. And that was really my first instance, and to be honest, I didn't pick up on it right away. I didn't really understand why it was happening. In fact, I think we walked out of the store, and I said to my partner, I was like, did you notice that? Did that feel weird? Like, I felt uncomfortable, so I ended up just leaving. um and it sort of welcomed a conversation that we had afterwards. And the store, it wasn't like a luxury store by any means, but I guess it's a higher end clothing store. And maybe that has something to do with it too. I'm not defending that in any way, but yeah, that was sort of my first experience. And for reference, I've never been in like a serious relationship prior to this one, so I don't have an experience with a white or black man to compare this to, but I'm positive that this is not like a normal situation to be in. And then after that, just comments made um, by other, store employees, just random people we've run into, family members, of course. But it's just a learning curve to be welcomed into a culture very different than yours. Simple things that we don't think about that aren't consistent across cultures, we sort of just assume they are because that's what our family does, that's what we're used to. But it definitely isn't the same for everyone. I mean, I can think of a lot of examples in terms of food, music, or even manners, or like etiquette, I guess is a better word. I've noticed are not the same. Not to say that things that I've done have been perceived as rude or vice versa, or nice for that matter. But just simple mannerisms aren't necessarily consistent culturally. That could also be just the way that I was raised and the way that he was raised, but I think that culture or race may play an important role in that. I also have a little story that I love to tell when I talk about this topic. It revolves around my grandfather, who he has passed away now, but I was incredibly close with my grandfather. This is my dad's father, and he was a great man. But for context, there's a few important things to know about him. So his name was Jack, and he is probably the best man I've ever met. He just is so loving and caring, and he could make anyone in a room laugh. He had so many relationships with so many different people. He loved to travel. He loved to play cards with his friends. He was a great man. And my grandfather was Catholic, and religion played a pretty important role in his life. He worked at a church for, I don't know, maybe 40 years, um, and it played a large role in his relationship with other people. Also, my grandfather was about 80 years old he'd be about 80 years old now, and this happened maybe 3-4 years ago. So keep the age in mind. Also, a generational component here, of course, but my grandfather loved my boyfriend. They got along really well, and my grandfather always had nothing but positive things to say about him. He always asked about him. He, always tried to make him feel comfortable. And I will never forget. My grandfather was driving me to work. I had my got my first job when I was 15, so I didn't drive yet. So my grandfather regularly took me to and from work, and this day wasn't really any different. But when we got in the car, he asked, "How's Tyler?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, he's good, whatever." Um, and my grandfather sort of asked about um, these very circumstances. He's, like how is it hard being, in a or dating a black man or being in an interracial relationship. And I was sort of off put by the question. I took a moment and I thought to myself, why is he asking this? Why is this relevant? And I got, to be quite honest, kind of fearful for a minute, just because I know his age and I know the sort of time period that he grew up in, and I was fearful that he would make a sort of racist or derogatory comment that I wasn't really prepared to hear in the moment. But I was surprised to hear him go on to say, how much he loved Tyler, and he thought he was a great man, and how he wanted to know if there was anything him and my grandmother could do to make him feel more comfortable. And of course, I responded and I said, Tyler loves you guys, and he wouldn't come to your home if he didn't feel comfortable there, and so on and so forth. And this all started because it was around Christmas time, and Tyler was going to be spending the first Christmas with my family. And so it was a big deal, Anytime any of the grandchildren sort of brought someone along for a holiday, it was a big deal. And my grandfather said, are there any foods we could make that he enjoys more than the food that we cook, which, if you know anything about my partner, is he loves Italian food with all his heart. And so there's literally nothing that would make him more happier than what my grandparents were already cooking. But he said, are there foods? Is there anything we can do to make the day more comfortable for him? How can we support him being in, the only black man in an entirely white room? And I really, really appreciated this comment. Now, the way my grandfather presented it, I'm definitely paraphrasing a bit. The words he used, not to say he was rude or was using any type of derogatory language, but he didn't really know how to express this. And so I am definitely paraphrasing. But it was met with such great intention. He was genuinely trying to welcome a new member into our family and support them to the best he could with very little knowledge about who they were, where they came from, and he was really trying. And at the very least, I appreciated the effort, and I recognized that this was sort of a challenge for my grandfather. He grew up in a time where that wasn't feasible. You couldn't date someone, or at least him and his family. He couldn't have brought home a black woman. That wasn't going to happen. So it was a learning curve for him, and I really appreciated his efforts to welcome the transition with grace and with an opportunity to meet someone different from himself and different from his own kids and grandchildren. And I thought that was a really beautiful moment. So as much as it set me back, again, it was sort of another instance that I experienced that encouraged me to think a little bit more about the realities of being in an interracial relationship and what challenges or situations that might bring on. So yeah, that was sort of a memory I'll cherish forever. But as we've progressed through our own relationship and gotten more comfortable and confident in who we are individually and as a partnership, the social perception and sort of underlying microaggressions have become exponentially uh, more prominent. I can just recall being home just a few weeks ago and walking into a nicer restaurant, and there was not a single minority there other than my partner. And of course, we were sitting at the table furthest into the restaurant, all the way against the back wall next to the kitchen. And so we had to pass lots of people. The crowd also was a bit older, and lots of funny stares, lots of whispering or comments under the breath to other people at their table. And again, it's not something that offends me per se. Rarely do we have people make comments to our face, especially strangers, but it's something that I just find so fascinating this day and age, that people are so bold to make those comments or make those stares as if they've never seen another interracial couple before. And so yeah, I just find it quite surprising and kind of, comical is not the right word, but I think sometimes making light of it and just laughing and recognizing the hypocrisy or the idiocy that some people sort of present when they see couples that look like us. I i i think sometimes the best response is just to make light of it and sort of giggle and joke about it. But I think it's really fascinating. Honestly, in general, I would say that entering in an interracial relationship in and of itself is a culture shock. Um, I am Italian. I'm also Irish, but I don't really resonate with my Irish culture. I grew up in a family that catered much more towards our Italian heritage in terms of traditions and food and culture. And so I don't, although I am Irish, obviously my last name's McCasland, the MCC is quite Irish, but I don't really resonate with that culture very much, at least in comparison to my Italian heritage. And so growing up in an Italian family, there are certain things that we do, that we say, that we eat, that we experience or celebrate, and those obviously are unique to our culture. Um, and again, growing up in a Catholic household has its own customs and traditions, of course. But I, again, grew up in a town where most people were also Italian or were also Catholic. And so those traditions and customs weren't unique to just our family by any means. And with all things considered, I am dating someone who, although is black, they are Christian, not Catholic, but they are Christian, and so there are some similarities there. Also, um, all things considered, a fairly similar socioeconomic status. But that aside, there are some pretty stark differences in terms of our culture and our customs. The biggest example that I think is probably the most obvious and came about earliest in our relationship was in food. So, particularly around holiday time, I think of very quote traditional food when I think of Thanksgiving or Christmas. And I've realized those aren't traditional foods; those are traditional Italian foods for those holidays, but not those are not universal. And there are foods that I had never seen before, let alone eaten, that I experienced when I was welcomed for holidays or just any other day of the week. Will also say my boyfriend's father is Jamaican, and so when he cooks, I'm eating more traditional Jamaican food, which is also something I had never experienced before. And in hindsight, I love it, and I probably would have never gotten to eat it had I not been with someone who was Jamaican. But um, yeah, there are some foods that I had never had before, and never even heard of before, that I've gotten to try and to eat, because of my relationship, and I'm really grateful for that. It's a way to experience culture without traveling, which I think is really unique, especially when I talked previously about, how much I enjoy traveling. Although, it's not something we can do all the time. We can't just always pack our bags. We don't have the means, um, financially, or maybe the time to do that. Life goes on. We have responsibilities. We can't be on the road all the time. And so, though I've never been to Jamaica, I feel like I've had a taste of it. No pun intended, but through Jamaican food, and I think that's really unique. And now I have, an aspiration to go there and to visit and to try food there, and to meet more, um, Jamaican communities, and sort of immerse myself in that. So that's a really, um, excellent opportunity that I think I've been able to get a hold of, and vice versa. My As I mentioned, my partner really enjoys Italian food. He loves pizza, he loves pasta, he loves chicken parm. We both love chicken parm so much, and quite literally anytime we go to an Italian restaurant, we both order chicken parm, and it's quite funny when the waiter comes out with two of the exact same dish, I think. But um regardless, he really enjoys traditional Italian food, and he doesn't really get that at home because that's not where his parents are from. And so when he gets to come to our house or my grandparents' house, he gets that. And I think he's grown a real appreciation for that. Um, and it's encouraged me to appreciate my culture a bit more, knowing that for someone else, this is sort of their first experience with it. It's something I've overlooked for a large part of my life, and I've learned to become more appreciative of my family and my culture and traditions that, again, I didn't really recognize were traditions until I saw someone who did some things differently. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to honor and respect those more, and I've gotten to think about what of those traditions I want to pull and I want to, implement with my own family one day. So I think that's been a really beautiful thing to witness. But in terms of culture shock, I mean, this extends far beyond food. As I mentioned, I think basic mannerisms and etiquette and language are things that are very, culturally sensitive, and again, that's something I think that we overlook. My partner in particular is one of the most respectful people I have ever met. He addresses my parents in a way that I've never really seen someone address my parents before. And he's incredibly polite. And I'm saying this in large part because obviously, I think he's a great person, but I think that the way he interacts with elders and, my parents, my grandparents, other family members, I think it says a lot about his cultural upbringing and how he was taught to love and respect, um, authority figures. And this has been a learning curve. Um, my parents are pretty casual, pretty relaxed people. Not that they don't want to be respected, of course they want to be respected, but you know, they're perfectly fine being called by their first name, and they're perfectly fine, engaging in casual conversation and things like that. So, or not being called ma'am, or things like that. So, it's been a bit of a learning curve, and with, my parents getting to know him better and vice versa, I think that they've navigated that really smoothly. Unfortunately, the same isn't really true. For me, I don't have a relationship with my partner's parents. There's a lot of history there, and I wish that wasn't the case. It's something that I had always sort of dreamed of, is having a close relationship with my significant other's parents and family, and I poured a lot of effort into making that happen. And at this point in time, it's not feasible. It's not gonna work out. I hope that that can change one day, but I've kind of come to terms with it. I've recognized, I've sort of done all that I can, and I don't really think there's any more effort or energy that I can give at this point. And so I've kind of nipped it in the bud for now. Again, I hope that that isn't always the case. I would love to see that change one day, but for now it's the way it is. And so because of that, I don't think I've had quite the experience he has. I haven't gotten to immerse myself in nearly as much Black culture as he has been able to experience when it comes to my culture. Um, again, that being said, I would love to learn more, and I try to learn as much as I can from him, but it's hard not seeing him be able to interact with other Black people in the way that he's able to see me interact with my own family members or people of my own racial or ethnic identity. So yeah, I think that that is again a large contributor to our experiences as a couple. It's far more often that he's seen in a group of white people than I'm seen amongst a group of Black people, and so on and so forth. But either way, the social stigmas certainly persist, particularly when we are alone and it's just the two of us. But those sort of microaggressions, again, are what really interest me. It's 2024. You would think that people would come to terms with the times, but I guess my biggest question is just why people are so offended by it. As I mentioned, I'm someone who likes to protect my relationship, and one way I do that is keeping it really private. I don't share a lot of details about it. Um, I don't talk about him very frequently or to a breadth of people. I sort of stick to my close knit circle, and that's sort of who I share details with. And even those details are not very extensive, but I just don't understand why people care. In large part, maybe because they don't get it, or they don't. I've brainstormed a lot about this, and I think maybe it's because they don't see how we could have things in common. But if I could tell you one thing about my relationship, it's that we have a lot more in common than we have not in common. Um, in terms of personal interests and values and goals, but also in terms of upbringing and things of that sort. Um, so yeah, I've always sort of questioned why people find it so interesting, and like I said, I think it's just because they don't get it. They can't wrap their head around it. They didn't see couples like this when they were younger, maybe, and so they can't imagine them today. But I always think it's funny how much people seem to care, as if we care that much. Like clearly we don't. Clearly we don't think that it's a hindrance in our relationship. In fact, I think it's one of the things that has allowed us to mature and grow as much as we have. And so I'm kind of grateful to have that experience. But again, people seem to really care. They seem to think that their opinions are going to deter us in some way, which I again find quite hilarious. But it's those small microaggressions that truly sort of eat away at you and get to you, and not that they make me question things by any means, but they do make me angry. um I see in those behaviors, or I hear those comments, and I just think to myself, like, who do you think you are to insert yourself in someone else's relationship and think that your opinion is valued or heard? Like, no offense, but I am well aware of what you think, and I clearly don't care. And again, the other unique component to this is the demographic of people that are typically making those comments is middle-aged white people. And I think to myself, who are you as a 40 or 50-year-old woman trying to tell a 20-year-old what she shouldn't do with her romantic life? Like, take 5 steps back, look at that, and question why you are so interested. Because if you're this interested in a 20-year-old relationship, you have much bigger issues to tend to than the we do being in an interracial relationship. Like, check yourself. Why do you care? If the roles were reversed, if a 20-year-old cared about your relationship this much, you would be offended, right? You would be questioning why they care, what place they think they have to have an opinion. This is also something else I was talking about with my father. We we were talking about music, and if you don't know, I wouldn't say like rap is like my type of music. I consider myself more like slow R&B, but I also do like rap music, and there's a lot of artists that I listen to that are rappers or that feature rappers in their music a lot. And my dad does not appreciate rap music. It's just not his style, which is totally fine. But we were having a conversation recently about rap music and about it being a black genre, or at least that was a comment that I made. Um, and we were talking about sort of the history and the origins of rap music and how he believes it's sort of deterred from that. And I understand his perspective. For more insight, the conversation was about how historically rap was used as an art form for young black people to talk about sort of the struggle, um, and rooted in segregation, and sort of just like again the black experience and black culture in countries where colored people were marginalized and discriminated against. And to my father's point, nowadays rap music is not about that. From his perspective, it's more about people flaunting their wealth than it is about where people came from. And though I can understand this perspective, I encourage my dad to think about what type of rap music he's exposed to. So again, my dad's not a rap listener, he's not a rap fan, and so the only rap music that he listens to is what's on the radio, which again is almost never a rap song. It's sort of a rap feature within a pop song. And so I said to my dad, "You're listening to pop rap. You're not listening to traditional rap artists. You're not listening to the top rap artists in the field right now." And in addition to that, you're listening to people who are asked to write a few verses that will fit into a song that's already made. So, for instance, when Nicki Minaj writes a song and she asks Drake to feature in it, she's gonna give her song to him. He's gonna write music based off of what she's already going to sing, and then he's going to insert that somewhere in throughout the song. So that's not rap music. And this led to me actually playing some rap music for my father and encouraging him to really think about the lyrics and think about what is happening, what is this artist talking about, what are they referencing, and what is the message or what is the point that they're trying to get across. And I think he was a little bit surprised to hear some of the language that was happening and what that truly meant. And back to the point of it being a black genre, I then played for him a white rapper. If you guys are at all familiar with Logic, he is a rapper. He used to be a lot more popular than he is today, but he's a white rapper, and there's one song in particular of his that I really like. And I'm not a Logic fan, I just really like that song, and so it happens to be in my playlist. And so I played that for my dad, and I said, I like this song. I know every word to the song, in fact. Tell him, just listen. I didn't tell him it was a white rapper. I said, just listen and tell me what this song is about. And it played and it played, and he didn't know. And I said, right, my point. This song isn't about anything. Now, I'm not here to hate on Logic. Again, I'm not a Logic fan. I don't listen to him regularly. This could very much not be the case for other songs of his. But that song in particular has really no message. He's not really talking about anything, or if it is, it's not apparent because I've listened to that song thousands and thousands of times and still could not tell you what it's about. No idea what the message is. And I played this song amongst a bunch of black artists, black rappers, who very clearly have a message in their song, whether you agree with it or not, there is a message. And my dad was like, okay, like, and again, he was still resistant a bit. And I think this is something that he would need to think more on, as do I. And I encourage myself and others to think about it a little bit more, especially being someone who consumes a lot of rap art. But I told him, I was like, this is the point, is when a white person or when anybody tries to place themselves within a black community of artists, they get lost because this space was not designed for them. This space was designed for young black men, which, not to say that females can not be artists, of course they can, but at the time it was designed for young black men to express themselves, to share their own struggles so that other black men could resonate with them. And again, we've obviously broadened the field to women and to to new people and cultures all around. But the point being is that historically it is still a genre that is designed for a certain segment of the population. And I think this is true for a lot of genres. I think it's true for pop music, right? When you think of pop artists, what do we know about them? Well, they tend to be young. Usually they are female. Like there's this whole Sabrina Carpenter rampage going on right now. People are big Sabrina Carpenter fans. I personally am not. It's just not my type of music. I think she's gorgeous. I think she can sing, but not my type of music. But besides the point, she is the epitome of a pop star. She is the, like, Miley Cyrus. She is the I don't know. Of course, I'm the Olivia Rodrigo. Like, they all fit that same pop mold. So when I think of pop artists, and I think when a lot of people think of pop artists, they think of those type of people. They're young, they're females, they're very attractive, they're running around on stage, they're dancing, they can sing, but they they entertain. That's sort of their goal. So there's sort of a mold for every genre. If you really think about it, rock artists, you're probably not thinking of anyone below the age of 60. That's just who that is. I think of an old white man with a beard playing a guitar. Like, there's or country music, I think, has maybe one of the strongest images associated with it. But besides the point, there's a person associated with each genre of music. And the same goes for rap. The reason people have a problem with it is because, for once, it's not a white person. And I think that people are offended by that, particularly people who are not black are offended by the fact that a black man is taking center stage. A black man is the face of something. God forbid, right? God forbid black men not stick to the basketball court or whatever. But again, another space that they're sort of attacked in. People say, okay, basketball is a black sport, and then attack people for that. Why are black men, disproportionately taking spots in the NBA? Well, no, let's back it up. Basketball isn't a black sport, but basketball is an inner city sport. Why is it an inner city sport? Well, because basketball doesn't cost anything to play. You only need two people, and you only need a basketball and a ball. Rather, a basketball hoop and a ball, right? A lot easier to do in an inner city and takes up a lot less space. But a lot easier to do in the center of a city than it is to play a 9v9 baseball game. That's impractical, right? It costs a lot of money. You need a bat, you need a helmet, you need a glove, you need balls, you need a massive field. These are all things, resources that inner city kids don't have. But you know what they do have? They have a beat up basketball, and they have materials they could make a hoop out of, and they have pavement. Right? There is a reason that black men fill the NBA. There's a reason for that. And the reason is that black people are disproportionately located in inner cities, and basketball happens to be an inner city sport. So what does that mean? Black people and basketball, they have a connection. They have something in similar. They're found in the same, or in common. They're found in the same spaces. So, sorry, that was a little rant. But the point here being is that black people don't have many things to call their own. And again, I'm not in no means trying to speak for the Black community, but I'm, as a white person, recognizing patterns that I have seen. And two spaces that they tend to fill are rap music and basketball, or specific sports in general. Same thing goes for track, right? Well, you don't need anything to run track, you can run anywhere. So for inner city communities, track is a very feasible sport. But again, all of this to say that Black people don't have many things to call their own, and when they do, non-Black people tend to attack them for that. So again, this is no hate towards my father. He was genuinely trying to understand, and I respect that. And I don't think he fully gets it, but it was a very um intriguing conversation to have with him. And just, he taught me a lot, and I in turn taught him a lot. And I think that it's a conversation that will continue, whether that's with me or him talking to other people. But I found it to be really insightful. And I think it's conversations like that that allow us to push past these types of microaggressions that interracial couples experience, or Black people experience when they're in white spaces. So again, the point of this episode was to talk about my relationship, and I feel like we've strayed from that a little bit, but I think all of these experiences speak to the realities of having a Black person or having a Black community close to you as a non-Black person. Um, so, and I think, although like we went through that whole conversation with my father without ever mentioning my partner's name, I think in large part it was driven by the fact that my dad is forced to, although he wants to, I'm not to take that away from him, but he has a relationship with a Black man that someone else welcomed in, right? So I brought my partner home, and again, maybe forced isn't the right word, but I brought together that relationship between my father and my partner, or my mother and my partner. And maybe that wasn't sort of in their bingo card 5 years ago, but I did that. And they in turn have a responsibility to learn about him and about where he comes from, just as my partner has a responsibility to do the same for me and my family. And so I think that little conversations like this are my parents' attempt to learn a little bit more about his experience. And I think something I encourage them to do is to stop talking to me about it. Not because I don't want to have those conversations, but because I'm not a spokesperson for Black people. Black people are a spokesperson for Black people. And I've always encouraged my parents to address my boyfriend or address other Black people that they have in their life, instead of going to white people who they think could articulate it, in a more digestible or, way, or whatever. I always encourage them. I say, talk to him about it. Ask him these questions. Don't ask me. I'm not going to speak for him. I can offer the knowledge that I do know, and I am willing to share that with you, but I think it's a lot more insightful to go to someone who has these experiences, who's not speaking on behalf of someone else, but rather speaking from their own experiences and their own sort of situations, or upbringing, or family, or culture. I think that hearing those beliefs and thoughts firsthand is a lot more valuable. And I never want to be the middleman. I never want to be conveying things back and forth. I really encourage them to get that information from the source. So I guess my point here is every relationship has challenges, whether that be a romantic one, a friendship, a relationship amongst family, coworker relationships. My God, coworker relationships are hard. It's sort of something I'm new to right now, and it's difficult, and I'm sort of figuring it out for the first time as we speak. But relationships are difficult, and they have layers, and you're gonna face challenges, especially when they're long relationships. Nearly 5 years, that's a long time, and people change a lot in 5 years, and they grow a lot. And I'm certainly not the same person I was at 15 years old, I promise you that. Or 14 when we met. 14? No, 15 when we met. But the point is that having such a strong identity rooted in race and culture plays an incredibly large role in how people are able to interact and connect with one another. And just like same race couples face challenges, interracial ones do too. And I'm not here to say that interracial relationships are harder or whatever the case may be. My point is just it comes with a unique set of experiences, um, challenges that I don't think everyone is prepared to work through. I certainly wasn't. I didn't think about the challenges that being in an interracial relationship might welcome. They were new to me, and they were experiences I never saw coming. That being said, I am grateful. I think I'm a better human because of them. I think I'm a more understanding person. I think I'm a better educated person because of them. So I guess the point of this whole conversation, romantic relationship or not, do not be afraid to connect with someone because of circumstances that you cannot change. Um, I can't change my upbringing. I can't change my racial identity, nor can he. But we've used it as an opportunity to learn more about one another than to devise us. And I think that straying away from relationships because of certain characteristics that you feel may distance you is such a negative outlook to have on the possibility for human connection. We are on a planet filled with so many beautiful cultures, so many amazing types of people, and to step away and reject opportunities to meet people different from you, whether that be in race or some other category, is to neglect such a large part of our population, such a large part of what makes this world so unique. And this again is coming from someone who, to this day, I still have predominantly white friends. I still interact with predominantly white people. I don't see myself in situations with minorities on a frequent basis at all. But I think that as I, continue to travel and continue to meet new people, these are experiences that I crave, and I want to meet new people, and I want to meet people who think differently than me. And I encourage you to do the same. And if those relationships flourish into romantic ones or into close friendships, amazing. They may not, though. You may have too much different from these people to build that strong relationship. But at the very least, it's an opportunity to learn about things or to welcome new perspectives different from your own. And those are the opportunities to grow. Those are where people begin to expand their worldview and begin to accept people different from them and learn new ways of doing things. All such valuable skills that I fear we too often are too afraid of to accept. So again, these are just some of my own experiences, some of my own stories, and as I mentioned, we've come to a point in our relationship specifically where we try to laugh about these things. We use them as learning moments, and then instead of getting bothered by them or offended or frustrated, I think we've done a really great job at learning how to acknowledge them, address them, laugh about it, and move on. And again, in most instances, I feel like that's the best option. Um, I know that our generation and the ones that follow behind us are far more welcoming of this type of dynamic, and I think that trend will only continue, and I think that's a very positive shift that we've made. But in the meantime, I think we and other interracial relationships have worked diligently to educate older generations about how they can be more supportive or how they can be more welcoming to these types of relationships. And I do think that's a step in the right direction. But I think I think people who are in those relationships, it is your duty and responsibility to be an educator. We want people to accept us as just like a same race relationship, I suppose. And if that's the case, then I think we play an equally important role in the puzzle. And that's a role that a lot of people, I fear, don't want to assume, but it's a very important one. So whether it's on a platform like this where I'm trying to reach a lot of people, or if it's in a casual conversation in the car with my dad, I I try my best to share my experiences because I know I'm not alone. I know other people who are in similar situations have similar stories to share, and I think they need to be heard because I think it says a lot about the sort of social climate that we're in right now, and how it's affecting relationships. So yeah, um, as I mentioned at the start of this episode, I like to keep my relationship pretty private, and so talking about it on like an open forum like this is a little overwhelming. So sorry if it got confusing, or if you felt like details were missing. I don't intend to do that. I just gives me peace of mind to keep this to myself. So, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to be more open because I think it's important, and I think it's particularly important that we share things that are important to us as human beings, or we share um things that we value. And something that I value, of course, is my relationship, and it's very important to me. And so I'm learning to try to let more people into that space, and share it, and use it as an opportunity to connect with people, and instead of something I hide. And again, I know people have mixed feelings about this. I hide it because I see it as mine, and I don't want to let other people's opinions alter my own feelings. I feel incredibly confident in my relationship, and I feel comfortable in it and respected, and I think he would say the same. But we're just private people, and that's the way we like it. So as much as I can plan to continue that sort of private trajectory, I also am working to share with people something that brings me so much joy, because I think it's a large part of who I am, and I want to share that with people that I love. So I hope that this was at all insightful for you guys, whether you're in a similar situation of your own, or you just want to listen to a new perspective, in which case, good for you. I think that that's a really great start. And as I mentioned, I am by no means trying to speak to the Black experience. I think it's important that we educate ourselves on Black culture from Black voices. So I encourage you to do your own research, or to find people in your own life, and talk to them about it and hear what they have to say, because we can't continue to silence those voices anymore. So I hope that this was insightful, and I really, really appreciate you guys listening. Um, as I mentioned, I'm trying to bulk film a few episodes to get back on a consistent uploading schedule. I think I might release this one a little bit early, give you guys a little bit of a bonus episode, but either way, it was so fun chatting with you guys. I look forward to our next episode. I was actually just planning it, and I'm really excited about it. So, yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying this journey. Also, a little shout out to the Instagram. If you don't follow my Instagram account, I would really, really appreciate it. Subconscious.medicine. Um, I have been trying to post a little bit more on there, more like day in the life type of stuff. And then also, of course, new upload or new episode announcements on there always. So, yeah, if you guys want to give that a follow, that would be so much appreciated. And please share this podcast with anyone that you think might be interested. Trying to grow our community, and yeah, it would really help. And love you guys. Thank you so much, and hope you have a great week. Bye, guys.